what you need in order to be successful in life is not merely depth, but both depth as well as range. Study what is a lot more relevant to what you are doing today. Knowledge and wisdom are still human domains. Brevity, 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 accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. The only way to stay happy is to stay curious. PR is not a sales tool. In fact, it's not even a marketing tool. Okay, it is a broader image building tool. I can proudly say that I have never copied a single word in my life. Never ever. I have not done anything that is illegal in my life ever. ದಿನ ದಿನವೂ ಕುಸಿದು ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ಗುಡಿ ವಿಶ್ವ, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಆ ಗುಡಿಯ ಕೆಲಸದಾಳುಗಳು, says DVG. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, poor minds discuss people. I have built my business without ever going and pitching cold to a single company in my life. Don't network for the sake of networking. You should keep looking for constant sources of information, and that's available in abundance around you.
Today I am here with Mr. N.Ravi Shankar, who is the CEO and founder of Aim High Consulting. Let's hear about his journey and his experiences. Were you a brilliant student or were you a backbencher, sir? And when did the turning point towards your success happen?
Interesting. So I was neither a brilliant student nor a backbencher. Okay, so I had to mostly sit in the front benches because of the eyesight that I have. I'm saying you won't guess my power. So I would mostly be found in the front benches. But it would be presumptuous to say that I was a brilliant student academically. Okay. I was perhaps some kind of an all-rounder. Was there a little bit in sports, was there a little bit in, for example, I would do a lot of extracurricular reading. But when it comes to academics, I wasn't really a brilliant student, even though I would be found in the front benches. But I'm very happy that, in our times, the kind of childhood that we had, and an age where we weren't bombarded with too much information, ignorance was truly bliss, to the extent that only a year before I did my MBA, I realized what an MBA was. Okay, I did not know that there was something called an MBA. Call me an ignorant guy, but I really did not know what an MBA was. I did it because a good friend of mine, who's currently my business partner, did his MBA, and I also thought I'll follow suit and do my MBA. But till then, I was in a very different sphere. I was doing botany, biochemistry, and microbiology, and therefore I'm very curious about what dioxide is in your name. So biochemistry is something that I have done. So from that kind of a background, switching over
To business.
to a business. So brilliant, no. Backbencher, no. I don't know if this is a good answer.
It's a valid answer nonetheless.
Yeah.
How can an average student become a CEO, sir? Since you were neither brilliant nor a backbencher, I think you would be able to relate to this question.
Yeah. So I was neither a backbencher nor a brilliant, academically brilliant student, but I had a quality perhaps which most people today lack, which is I was an interested guy. Okay, I was interested in what was happening in the affairs of the world around me, and that is what kept me in good stead. So what does it take to be a CEO? How can an average student become a CEO? The path to being a CEO is more often than not a path that combines not merely brilliance or academic capabilities but also emotional intelligence. Okay, somebody who is perceptive, somebody who can respond to the challenges of the situation, somebody who can think on his or her feet, somebody who can try and visualize what could be there ahead and start planning accordingly, somebody who can combine resources in such a way that you arrive at a solution. And all of that, it is preposterous to assume that it will come from academic brilliance. Academic brilliance can give you the wherewithal, the domain expertise, the the confidence to try and get to a certain level. But if you have to truly climb up the ladder, what it takes is these other skills, and I'm presuming that maybe some of those came along the way as I was doing a lot of non-academic stuff rather than academic stuff, Disha.
Right, wonderful, sir. I think that's great advice. Other than just studying, you should also experience other things where you learn lessons like this.
Absolutely. So, to have a well rounded personality is far more important than being merely academically brilliant. I'm not saying forsake academics, academics is very important. It gives you the discipline to study a subject in detail, it gives you depth. But what you need in order to be successful in life is not merely depth, but both depth as well as range. Okay,
Right.
be a jack of some and a jack of all and a master of some kind of an approach is what you need to really take.
Wonderful, sir. What is the best advice someone gave you, sir?
Hmm. If you talk of life advice, okay, there are many that one can think of, but yeah, so if you are talking about career advice, okay, then the best advice that I got, I'll tell you both actually.
Yes, sir. Tell us
The
both.
career advice, the best one that I got, okay, it's a funny situation. I'm sitting in front of my former boss, and after an appraisal, and like everybody, I was not happy with the money that I got at that point in time, and I was trying to talk to him to negotiate
Right.
and perhaps to ward me off or perhaps with a good feeling to give me genuine advice. I would actually give him the benefit of doubt and say he was actually trying to give me genuine advice. He said, chase success, don't chase money, because
Ah,
because
money
money
comes with.
follows success and it can never be the other way around.
Right.
Okay, so that's, I think, I took that very seriously, half because I did not have a choice at that point in time. My money negotiation had failed. Second, I really thought there was substance in what the gentleman uttered. I really felt that, fine, I'm saying, there is so much money all around. It's about the size of the container that we carry, how much we can fill it and bring back to our homes. So like I said, I was fairly well read, and that also gave me a certain perspective, sitting in this adverse moment, trying to talk about money, and somebody saying, hey, don't chase money, chase success. I said, fine, let me take that bet and try and see if I can do that. And today I'm happy to note that
It worked out
yeah,
well.
I have got a reasonable amount of success and a decent amount of money, and I'm happy about both. Contented, I'm saying, whether I have so much is a different question, but I am content, I'm happy with what I've got. That's so far as the career advice goes. The life advice, okay, my wife and I were 30 years ago traveling in a train, going for a national debate to Jaipur. Okay. We're married for the last 20 years, know her for the last 30 years. So this was 30 years ago. As students, we are going. And there is this professor that we meet on a train, like it happens in good books. Okay, so we are sitting there and having a chat with this guy. Okay, and you know, there were all kinds of people on the train, a second class bogie, which is crossing a few states.
Right.
And this guy tells us there are two ways to look at life. One is to treat everybody as a scoundrel unless he proves himself otherwise, or to treat everybody like a good person unless he proves himself otherwise. Okay, so I think that's wonderful advice, and I feel a good point to start is to treat everybody like a good person unless he proves himself or herself otherwise. So that's, I mean, I can talk about a lot of life advice. I'm saying today for me, bulk of my life advice, even career advice, so that a perspective to life comes from DVG's Mankutimana Kagga. Okay, so I think that's like the Bhagavad Gita in Kannada, and I immerse myself very deeply. I'm saying even if you just take one of those, these are called muktakas. If you take one every day and if you mull over it, there is enough for you to think about throughout the day. So yeah, that's where
Good food
my
for
advice
thought,
comes
sir.
from. Thank you. Yeah.
What would you tell your younger self, sir, if you could go back in time?
Yeah. So I would tell my younger self, study what is a lot more relevant to what you are doing today. Okay, because life, the beauty of life is that it can be figured out only in retrospect. Okay, so I mean, this question itself,
It's a bit
gives
retrospective.
rise to a lot of doubts and misgivings about oneself, because I studied, like I told you, science,
Science.
and that too pure science, botany, biochemistry, microbiology, and then ended up meandering towards journalism in between. Okay, so I wanted to be a journalist, and if you have the time, that's an interesting story. So
Sure.
I decided to become a journalist, and then after my graduation, uh, uh, I somehow got into masters in journalism in
Right.
Mysore University, and while I was studying there, I applied randomly to a publication called The Week, which exists today, but it was the number one in those times. And at that point in time, 4,000 people had applied for a job
Oh.
to be a correspondent in Delhi. Okay, there were two positions, 4,000 people, multiple rounds of interviews. Okay, I'm in my first year of masters in journalism. I had randomly applied. I got through. Yeah, 4,000 people in those times is a huge number, and to get through and to make it to that. So that sort of, I got in, and I was not in a position to go. My father was unwell, a lot of complications. So I decided that, hey, if I can get in there without a master's in journalism, I can still be a journalist. Okay, so let me come out of that. The best decision that I took was to do my MBA instead of continuing my master's in journalism. So I would go back and tell my younger self, don't make those mistakes where you meandered from one thing to the other. I'm not saying that there's no value in all of that meandering that happened. I'm sure it has, in many ways, shaped the person that I am today. But yeah, since you are asking me what I would tell that person, this is what I would tell. I would also perhaps tell the person to, you know, take life a lot less seriously. Today, I am that kind of a person. I don't take anything seriously, including this interview. But but back then, I used to, take myself very very seriously. So, and that's what I would perhaps tell my younger self.
Wonderful, sir. What is the mistake you see students making today at this point in time that might affect their careers in the future, sir?
Yeah. Albert Einstein, I think, said, uh, there are two ways to look at this world. I keep quoting this. One, as though everything is wonderful, as though everything is a miracle. The other is as though nothing is a miracle. Okay. Today, all of us suffer from this one disease. All of us. It's called ADD, attention deficit disorder. Okay.
Yes, sir.
We are stuck, immersed in this world where we are seeking gratification to happen in 30 seconds. Okay. So, because of that, there are 2, 3 serious side effects. One is, of course, the attention deficit that I spoke of, where you can't concentrate long enough. Okay. So, that's a big issue. The second is lack of ambition. Okay. How is lack of ambition connected to this? Ambition comes from a mindset to work hard towards a greater purpose over a period of time.
Right.
Today, when you are seeking and getting gratification in 30 seconds, okay, small releases of dopamine or whatever else that is happening, you don't want that bigger thing, or you cannot set your eyes on that greater objective that you need to achieve. Okay. So there is that larger one great purpose of life, and there are several subsets of that. You keep climbing, that's a different story. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be smaller releases of dopamine. No, there should be. But if you are getting that by passive consumption of some inane stuff that is completely unrelated to your life, then it could dilute that larger purpose of your life. So that is something that is happening. And also what happens is, because you're consuming that kind of stuff all the time, after a while fatigue sets in and you stop seeing things as wonderful, you stop seeing things as miraculous, you stop seeing things as fantastic, which Einstein said. I'm saying this, that's one way to look at life, and that's the only way to sustained happiness, to sustained glory. Okay. So talking of happiness, my daughter had given an exam, an entrance test somewhere for her school, where they had asked her, what is your purpose in life? And she had said, my purpose in life is to be happy, and the only way to stay happy is to stay curious. Okay. So they say the child is the father of the man. So this is one lesson that I've picked up from what my daughter has said, and I truly believe that in today's times, curiosity is a big casualty to what is happening in the social media world and the way we are consuming it. And that is something that truly needs to change if we have to look at the world with a sense of wide-eyed understanding.
Okay, sir. That's very good advice. Was your path to success easy? Was it luck or was it hard work, sir?
Cliched as it might sound, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that's my story as well. But was it easy? The answer is no.
No.
But was it very tough? The answer is still no. Because, to be very honest with you, I am an accidental entrepreneur. Okay. So it is very easy to retrofit a backstory to your current success, and I won't do that. I'm saying that will be very dishonest. So how did I end up being where I am today? How did I end up starting Aim High, and how did that grow? The growth required a lot of effort, but Aim High itself happened more or less accidentally. I'm saying half. I mean, I always keep joking about it because of greed. I was doing this, for another organization, and at some point I thought, hey, I can do all of this for myself. It's a service business, which means it's not very capital intensive. Consulting businesses are easy to start and easy to fail also, but easy to start. And I said, boss, let me do this for myself, and one thing led to the other. And the toughest part always is having a good set of credentials that people will trust you for. Okay. But that wasn't very difficult, to be honest with you, in my case, because I was in a similar business. If I was doing something else earlier, and then if I had come into this, then it would have been much tougher, perhaps. But this was a game that I sort of knew, and I had to fine tune, which was not very difficult, to be very honest. I know I'm saying a bad story is always a better story, and if I told you the story of the kind of thorns that were there in the way and all of that, it will perhaps make for a better story. But the thorns that one negotiated along the way were more in terms of the kind of challenges that our clients had and how one went about solving for those, rather than the thorns that were laid out on my own path. So not to say that everything was easy, but what I'm trying to say is that if you are really genuinely interested in what you are doing, it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like you are straining to achieve something. Yeah. So if you are loving those challenges, which I think I did, I started at a fairly young age. 32 is when I, started my own company, and that's a good age when you are up to most of the challenges. You have the mental energy and the physical energy to negotiate most of those. And so was it easy? No. Was it very difficult? No. It was somewhere in the middle, and I'm happy it was that way.
Wonderful, sir. And during this career, did you ever feel like giving up, sir? Even though it wasn't that hard according to you, did you ever feel like giving up? And what kept you going when you did,
Yeah.
sir?
So interesting. So the nature of our profession is such that you move from one creative stroke strategic challenge to another, which is very, very different from one another. Okay. Each challenge that you meet, okay, has no connection, no correlation with the previous problem that you solved, with the previous problem that you solved. So, like I said, I have not had, I'm saying, however, exaggerated it might seem, I haven't had a single dull day in my life. Okay. I don't remember the last time when I was bored. Okay. I mean, I don't know. Because there is a new thing that comes up every day which requires you to apply your mental faculties, and there is no cookie cutter model. It's not like, hey, boss, this is like the previous problem that I solved, a few years ago or something like that. No, because the dynamics of everything from the business of my client to the ecosystem that the client is operating in to the digital dynamics of it, all of that would have changed so much that you need to think afresh each time. Okay. That's the good thing about consulting in general and communication consulting in particular. And it is for that reason that one has really not had the time to think of giving up in that sense. I'm saying, and when the going is good, you wouldn't think of giving up. and what is meant by the going is good is also defined by you. Okay, I'm from this Mysore mindset that ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, it's okay. I'm saying it's one can be content kind of a thing. So we call it alpatruptru in
Kannada.
our thing. So yeah, alpatrupti is a quality, it's a virtue if you ask me. And yeah, and you I more often than not, I have always thought that I've got more than what I deserve. So that has also sort of kept me going. That is one thing. The other thing is the counterbalance that I have found in my life, where you know I am not just wedded to my company or my profession, but I do a lot of other things as well, which sort of helps me keep my balance, which is a lot of writing, and in a completely different space, in a completely different sphere. I have written more than 1,200 published articles over the
Oh,
last 20
wow.
years. I've written leading columns in Kannada. I'm one of the longest standing columnists in Kannada, while
Oh,
my
wow.
operating language is English when it comes to the corporate world. Okay, when you are getting invited to Kannada Sahitya Sammelanas and many of those other literary fests and stuff like that, okay, your kick in life is coming from multiple things, and therefore some failure here, I'm not saying that all of what I have done has been a success, but some failure here, I can take it a lot more easily than others who otherwise will depend only on what is coming out of their enterprise or their profession to
Right.
keep themselves afloat. I can keep myself afloat even if the balloon of my business is punctured fully. And I think my advice to other entrepreneurs, CEOs, professionals is to have that kind of a counterbalance. One is the food for life that you need to find. I mean, which
Right.
is your job, which is your business, whatever else. But the other thing that one needs to find is food for the soul, and that need not come from your profession. And
Right.
that's the reason why my answer might be atypical to your question.
A lot of food for the soul usually doesn't come from professions, or in these days at least. Many people are dissatisfied with what they're doing. They've studied something, doing something else. So I think that's really good advice, finding it somewhere else, which a lot of people don't think about these days.
Absolutely. So work life balance that people speak of, okay, they usually try and make it as though it's a balance between your family and work. Not so.
Hmm. Right. Yes,
It's
yes.
about having something else that complements your life. Okay,
Hmm.
it can be your family also. I'm not saying that you forsake family or work. I'm saying that those things are there, they're essential, it's important, but there needs to be another thing. So to give you an exaggerated example, Disha, so I read this many years ago and it kept bothering me, uh, that the second highest instance of a person's death,
Hmm.
okay, happens the year that they retire. Okay,
Oh.
yeah, apparently. Okay, the first, I mean, the highest is obviously the year when you are born, because you are most vulnerable to circumstances. Of
Ah.
course, that is changing
Right.
today with medicine and all of that. But the highest is still the year that you are born, because your chances of survival are, lessened by various other factors. You could be born with a disease or a disorder, and various other things. But many people, apparently, of course, I'm saying I'm not counting the years after, let's say 75, 80 and stuff like that. That's
Hmm.
with every increasing year you become a lot more vulnerable to death. But in your reasonably able years, okay, let's assume between, let's say, 50 and 65 or 50 and 70. Okay, if let's say 60 is the year that people mostly retire, that's the year when they are apparently more likely to die as well. You know why?
Why, sir?
Because there comes a sense of purposelessness. Okay,
Ah.
where when you are, like I said, if you are wedded to your profession, if that's the only thing that you are doing, then suddenly you are encountered with this huge sense of loss and a lack of identity. Okay,
Right.
and you don't know what to do next. I'm saying you're just stuck to a routine. You are going to your work, coming back. You're perhaps doing well there or not doing well, whatever. Even if you're doing well there, once that is taken away from you, or if it's a business that you are running and suddenly from day after tomorrow you don't have that business to run for whatever reason, it could be a good sellout that you might have benefited from. It could be anything. But suddenly when you don't have anything to do, when there is this sense of purposelessness, okay, that is when you are highly likely to sort of give up on life. You spoke of giving up on the profession, but
Right.
people subconsciously end up giving up on life itself unknowingly.
Unknowingly.
So if you need to have a sense of purpose in life, that need not come from your work alone. Okay, this may not be great CEO advice, but this is life advice which is important to everybody, including CEOs, who end up looking at themselves as very diminished, marginalized individuals at the end of the day, and they would have in the course of that journey lost friends, lost everything, and they wouldn't know how to be in life without friends, how to, I mean, if they don't have this counterbalance. I told you that I draw a lot of inspiration from Mankutimana Kagga.
Right.
So if I'm allowed to sort of quote one, ಓರ್ವನೇ ನಿಲುವೆ ನೀನ್ ಓರ್ವನೇ ನಿಲುವೆ ನೀನ್ ಉತ್ಕಟ ಕ್ಷಣಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಧರ್ಮ ಸಂಕಟಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಸಾರ ಯಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರ್ಯಾಣ ಘಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರ್ವಾಣ ಘಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರ್ಯಾಣ ಯಾತ್ರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಿರ್ಮಿತ್ರ ನಿರಲು ಕಲಿ ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ ನಿರ್ಮಿತ್ರ ನಿರಲು ಕಲಿ ಮಂಕುತಿಮ್ಮ. We keep hearing about how it is lonely at the top for a CEO. He won't have friends. I'm sure many would have spoken to you about it and saying you need to find the solutions for yourself and all of that. When this gentleman says nirmitra niralu kali, he does not mean to tell you don't make friends. He's saying that you need to have the ability to have that sense of balance where you can live that life of a CEO and life otherwise, even without leaning on others. And I think that is an essential quality of a CEO, and that is very, very essential as you try and find
Your
work
purpose
and
in
life
life.
balance.
What was your biggest obstacle in your career, sir? And how did you overcome it? Could
Yeah.
you share some behind the scenes challenges that you faced as a CEO?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of them. When I was getting started, like I told you, I was an accidental entrepreneur. When I was leaving my last job, where I was doing very well, I was the vice president of that company. And, when I decided to move on, okay, I had a very small amount in my bank account. Okay. So, and we decided to put everything that we had, me and my partner, into this venture. Not an easy decision for somebody coming from a middle class kind of a background from a small town. And the obstacle is, unlike today, entrepreneurship was not fashionable at the time when I decided to do it, 2007. I mean, that's when it slowly started becoming fashionable. But even to this day, people will tell you, you better go and work for a while and then decide if this is the right thing. But back then, I'm saying it was taboo. But I was lucky to have a family which did not question my decision. I'm saying they had a lot more ability, I mean, lot more faith in my ability than I myself did. So that was good. What also sort of inspired confidence was the fact that when I was leaving my last job, all the people that I went to say bye to as clients, I mean, no, I won't be there from tomorrow. I mean, this gentleman or whoever else will take over, kind of a thing. When I went to say my byes, almost everybody offered me a job. Okay. I was a PR guy, okay, communications guy, and one of them even offered me the job to be the business head for the country. for his business. I said, boss, something is something. I mean, I keep joking. I mean, something must have been either wrong with that guy or something is right with me. And I decided to take the bet on something being right with me rather than the other way around. So that helped me cross that obstacle of entrepreneurship, because I was still undecided on what I will do next. So I said, oh, if so many people are vesting so much faith in me, then this is at least worth a try, kind of a thing. That's the first obstacle. The second obstacle was, operating in a crowded market without differentiators and without credentials that you could call your own. Okay, I was in a similar business, so that credentials problem was not such a big problem, because they could at least trust me for having solved the problems of somebody else being the head of that business elsewhere. But still, in a crowded market like that, why would you trust a newbie company?
Right.
Okay, so we had to find a niche in which we operate. We had to find the right kind of space within that larger universe. And there also, again, like I said, it's easy to retrofit a success story, but I'll tell you very honestly that we got lucky, and we got fairly deeply entrenched into the startup ecosystem in this country, and that is where we found our sweet spot, where startups and technology enabled businesses, we were there at the right place at the right time. 2007, that's around the time when the startup boom, the second or the third round, depending on what you call rounds, okay, of startup boom was happening. And that the biggest wave, the wave hasn't stopped till today. And we got to ride that wave, fortunately. So obstacles were there, but I don't want to exaggerate those obstacles just to make my story look good.
Wonderful, sir. What are three things or unique skills that made you successful, sir,
Hmm.
according to you?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how to bring it down to three, but I feel that the name of the game in any, you know, in any success for that matter, is consistency. Okay.
Right.
So, to have the ability to keep doing the same thing differently each time. Oxymoron. I mean, I understand. Same
Right.
thing differently. What nonsense. Okay. So, but like I said, you're solving for a client's problem. The problem is different. Okay. You need to think of the things around it, and then you need to arrive at a solution. Okay. But for the people who are executing that, it should still seem like something that they can relate back to. Okay, so the complexity is something, it's a long story, but yeah, let's call it consistency, number one. Second is commitment. Okay, so very, very important, and commitment comes with a lot of other trappings around it. I'm saying you might be extraordinarily committed, but how do you get the same kind of commitment from the kind of people that who are working on your behalf for your clients? Okay,
Right.
that, I mean, you spoke of obstacles. I missed this point
Oh.
while speaking about it. One of the biggest obstacles is finding the right kind of people. Something that's the biggest challenge that I have faced. Maybe you could retrofit this story there. So one of the biggest obstacles that I've seen is finding high quality talent, especially in our kind of space. Okay, if you are extraordinarily talented, you would perhaps be going and working in a global consulting kind of a company. Why would you be working for a communication consulting company in the country which does not pay you as handsomely as some of these other opportunities would? You would perhaps be, if you are well versed with the world of, let's say, startups and technology enabled businesses, you might end up working with a VC company, you might end up working with an investment banking company, you might be a business analyst with the big four, or there are so many opportunities that call you. But creative solutioning, while it's very interesting, like I've been trying to project in the course of this conversation, it is not as rewarding. It is. I mean, I'm not saying that you get paid very low, but I'm saying degree of comparison is with something else, and therefore, to sell somebody this dream of boss, the reverence with which somebody will talk to you is more valuable than the money that you can potentially earn is not easy at all, and that's a big obstacle to it. Takes a certain kind of a person to come and take up the cudgels in this kind of a space. So that is, yeah, the second, answering your previous question of obstacles and this question of what are the three qualities. The second quality is
Consistency.
commitment. And since I have told you two C's, let me also try and fit a C in
Third C.
here for the third one, which is continuous learning. Okay.
Ah,
In a space like ours, in a space like ours, okay, you can't rest on past laurels, and that's just not a matter of using that phrase. No, if you don't know what is happening today in your client's business, okay, not just his business but the category at large, and also the larger worldview that you need to form, because you need to be giving them advice in this complicated job of, they say the job of a consultant is to actually borrow somebody's watch and then to tell them the time and then to give it back to them. I'm saying that's like, I mean, why am I taking your watch to tell you what time it is? So I'm saying it's that kind of a job. So if they have to still trust you for you calling time instead of telling time, okay, then they need to, really respect you for your, cognitive abilities, your intellectual capabilities, and your sharp sense of the business that you bring to the table. If you have to be all that, then you need to be streets ahead of them, and that can happen only if you are really learning continuously. Okay, and learning about, like I said, the micro aspects of the client's business, but more importantly the larger macro aspects as well. And yeah, so that's, I think these, I would say, are the three qualities, but I could list 30 or 300 also.
Thank you for providing us with the three C's of successful skills, sir. What problems is your company solving, sir?
Yeah, so Aim High Consulting is a communication consulting company. So what we do is solve for the communication related issues that a client might have.
Right.
Let's take a startup for instance. Okay, they would have figured out, or would at least be in the process of figuring out, a solution for their clients or customers. What's the biggest challenge in that process? If you ask me, it is how to get that message across to those clients or consumers.
Right.
We have interventions in that process which helps them figure out a way to arrive at what should be the key messages, how should those key messages be delivered, what should be the story pegs in which those key messages should be embedded, what are the various media vehicles or media channels that you need to use in order to communicate those messages effectively. Basically, the journey of transferring what is there in the minds of the entrepreneur
Right.
into the minds of their prospects. So
Hmm.
that's the solution that we offer.
Wonderful, sir. That's actually very unique compared to the previous CEOs that I've interviewed. This is something unique. It's a consultancy firm.
Absolutely. So most CEOs that you would have interviewed, I'm presuming, would be having their own products or having their own set of standardized services, okay, which they will create once and would perhaps be monetizing multiple times. Okay, or they will have, I mean, if it's an IT solutions kind of a company, they will have some kind of a SaaS solution, software as a service kind of a solution, which again, I'm saying creation happens at one instance or at multiple instances in the journey, but the monetization perhaps keeps happening over a period of time until that product or service becomes redundant.
Right.
In our case, it's like electricity. It has to be manufactured and consumed more or less at the same time. So it's that kind of a solution, because consulting also has a time angle to it. Okay, there is a
Right.
context, but there is also specificity in terms of time, and that is perhaps what makes it unique. And like I said, the funny business of borrowing your watch and telling you the time.
Right. And what do you think is the future trend of your industry, sir?
Yeah. So, like all industries, Disha, I mean, we see technology playing a huge role in our industry as well. What humans could do, it is possible today for AI chatbots, generative AI especially, to do. So we are in a phase of evolution. We are in a state of flux. We are also in a state of evolution. But then, like with everything else in life, like in all other spheres, even in our sphere, there is only an extent to which AI, generative AI, can play a role. I'm saying, for instance, there are the 5 W's and 1 H, isn't it?
Right.
What, where, who, when, why, and how.
How?
Okay. So, of these, what, where, who, when, okay, anybody, including a dumb computer, okay, you call it artificial intelligence or whatever, but I'm saying whatever knowledge has been aggregated, the art of pulling it out, or a dumb person for that matter, can answer these 4 questions. The deeper level questions of why and how, okay, it will still require intelligent people to be there at the core. And hopefully our industry will evolve for the better, because those dumb questions will get answered by artificial intelligence, and the real hard questions will be answered by natural intelligence.
So you would disagree with the notion saying that AI is going to take over all the jobs in the world?
Yeah, so AI will take over all the current jobs that are there in the world, okay, and will give rise to a lot of newer job opportunities. Okay, so since you have broached the subject, okay, I'm sure you are familiar with what is called the data pyramid. Okay, the data pyramid is one where there is raw data at the
Right.
bottom, okay, followed by information, followed by knowledge, followed by wisdom. Okay, so the raw data and information no longer are human domains, because computers, by virtue of them being diligent machines, can process that far more quickly than humans.
Right.
But knowledge and wisdom are still human domains. Okay, so long as we remain sharp enough to keep it with us,
Right.
so long as we are continuously striving to use what artificial intelligence and the power of technology churns out for human good. Okay,
Right.
yeah, I'm saying the fear is always there that the Frankenstein that we rose could one day consume us and stuff like that. But to this day, I still feel these are exaggerated notions, because knowledge and wisdom are still human domains. I'm sure you would have heard this joke which explains what is knowledge and what is wisdom. To know that you know tomato is a fruit and not a vegetable, okay, is knowledge. Tomato is a fruit actually, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
But then to not put it in fruit salad is
Wisdom.
wisdom. So long as we have the wisdom, viveka, vivechane with us, I think we are okay. AI will take away a lot of jobs. Hopefully there won't be bloodshed at the end of it. Hopefully, I'm saying there will be a social crisis as well, not just the economic crisis. There'll be a huge social crisis, especially in countries like ours, where the population is huge. Job losses, especially job losses at a low skill and a semi skill level can lead to humongous social kind of issues and conflicts and stuff like that. And the theories are that we might even meander towards universal basic income and that kind of stuff. We already see signs of that. People, I mean, the government's moving towards some kind of guaranteed income for everybody because there aren't enough jobs around. I'm saying it's easier to give a dole instead of providing a job and things like that. So this crisis is going to get hugely amplified by AI, but the hope is that sanity will prevail, and what only the human species are endowed with, which is knowledge and wisdom, will keep us in good stead.
Wonderful. Can you share a few exciting developments that your company is currently working on, sir?
Everyday excitement. So like I told you, we work with startups and technology enabled businesses, and I told you that we have never had a dull day. So I'm saying it's a new challenge every day. We have worked with 18 out of the 100 unicorns that have come out of India. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, 200 plus categories. 18 unicorns like Flipkart, Ola, Byju's, Swiggy, Open Bank, or Gupshup. Okay, Gupshup is an artificial, is an AI company which we have been working with for the last 10 years, and they have been doing AI related stuff much before AI became fashionable, and everything is exciting, which is what is really exciting today. I mean, if I say that, my other clients might not like it, but the point I'm trying to make is, we work with businesses that are looking at the future very seriously. Okay.
Right.
There could be one organization which might be disrupting. I don't like the word because disrupt has a negative meaning, and it's been sort of given a artificial positive flavor by the startup world. But I'm saying, just so that there is common understanding, I'm using the word. Okay, disruptive stuff could be in fintech, somebody else could be doing it in edtech, and somebody else could be doing it in AI related stuff in retail. Somebody else could be doing it in a completely fresh new space. So who am I to sit in the seat of judgment and say, what, no, this is more interesting than the other? I think what is really exciting about what we do is the fact that we are able to sit with this guy and look at the crystal ball and get excited about what we are seeing there. Some of it might actually translate to reality, some of it might not. But the true joy is when it actually translates, to real stuff in the world. I'll give you an example of that. I'm saying in 2011, I think. Okay, there is this gentleman who comes to our office in an auto rickshaw. Okay, and wants to work with us. None other than Bhavish Agarwal. Okay, Bhavish Agarwal of Ola. Why did he come in an auto rickshaw? Because there was no Ola at that point in time. Okay, and he was still sitting with some kind of a business plan, and he comes because Lee Fixel of Tiger Global, after looking at the kind of work that we had done for Flipkart, referred this guy to us, and he's coming and sitting with us, and he's discussing his business plan, and he's telling us, you know what? I will build the largest cab company in India, or perhaps in the world, without ever owning a single cab. I will never own a single cab, but I will build the largest cab company. You'll think this guy is crazy. I'm saying, what's wrong with him? Why did Lee Fitzel send this guy to our office? At that point in time, that's what you would have thought, because first of all, there were no cabs in the country. I'm saying, have you seen a cab in your city? Hardly. Back then, I'm saying, as a child. Today, there are cabs everywhere. Okay, but back then, I'm saying we would have to, go to a particular point in a city to hire a cab if you ever had to. Okay, and that need would rarely arise, which means there is no market. Okay, and that product is more or less, of no value, kind of a thing. So here is this guy now sitting with you. Bombay and Calcutta had cabs. Kali Pilis in Bombay and Calcutta had those yellow cabs, all of
Right.
that. But yeah, slowly a market was developing for that in the form of Meru and Easy Cabs, and those again were cabs which you had to call by phone, and then they
Right.
would come if they felt like that kind of thing. But here is this guy who's sitting and telling you that he will build there'll be no need for people to buy cars, he says. Okay, and he's saying this in 2011. Today it will seem like, yeah, obvious. I'm saying it's, yeah, why does anybody need a car? There are cabs. Anyway, it's foolish to buy a car. It's like, I'm saying the same logic of why we should rent a house rather than buying a house, because, rental yield will always be 1% or 2% at the most, and therefore it makes sense to rent a house rather than buy one. Same logic applying. And car, by the way, is a depreciating asset as opposed to a house which might be an appreciating asset. All of that, I'm saying today it's evident. But
Back then,
that day, to sit and visualize this, when this guy is sitting and we are asking him questions like, boss, what will happen? Do you think these guys will let you play your cabs, auto guys and whoever else? You know what conviction he has? He says, first they will beat them. First they will beat us, then they will join us. Which is exactly what happened.
exactly what
And
happened.
he's sitting and telling us in an age where I hadn't seen a smartphone yet. Okay, 2011, 10 and 11. I don't remember the exact timeline, but around that time, hardly any smartphones around, hardly. And this guy is telling us that there will come a day when you will be able to actually see a cab coming towards you. And believe you me, we meaning my team is trying to convince journalists, business journalists, sophisticated guys who have traveled the world that such a thing is possible, and they are not willing to believe. In just 3 years,
It
the whole thing
happened.
changes. 3-4 years, and you're actually able to see the cab come towards you with great precision on your phone. Okay, what seemed like something that is impossible in just a matter of 2-3 years, changes. And that's the beauty of our lives, where we are able to hear it in the voice of the founder, who has the courage of conviction in what he's saying, doing, and then we see that translate into realities. Okay, today, why today? I'm saying even 10, maybe 6-7 years ago also. Someone like my mother taking booking an Ola on her phone, and then going around, gives you such great joy. You wouldn't have imagined that that is possible. An old lady, taking her phone and booking a cab and then going around. The kind of freedom it gives you, the way in which it can liberate the society, liberate it in multiple ways. The kind of entrepreneurial opportunity that it has given the cab drivers, for instance. You would have been too young back then, but a cab driver would be one guy who, let's assume you are sitting in the cab, let's assume that for whatever reason he knocks somebody down or there's an accident. What would he do? He would leave the cab and run away. Simple. Okay, that's it. Why? Because it was not his cab. He was earning a measly amount driving that cab. Today, more or less, every cab driver is a cab owner. Look at how those dynamics change. Okay, the sense of pride that it comes with. He won't today run away. You can run away if you wish, but he will stay because it's his cab. It's an asset that he will protect. Okay, and it's his enterprise. Okay, while we are talking about large enterprises making a big difference to our country, we must also spend some time thinking of the kind of entrepreneurial opportunities, the micro entrepreneurship that has which is a consequence of the larger entrepreneurial opportunity, gig workers on Swiggy and Zomato, to all kinds of the people who deliver your stuff on Flipkart or Amazon. All of these the kind of job opportunities which otherwise would be government's responsibility is somehow today being taken care of by these guys. Now, to be able to see this kind of a transformational effect on the society much in advance, And to have seen it across, like I said, 18 out of the 100 unicorns that have come out of India, or 200 odd categories where we would have worked with either the number one or number two. In pretty much every category that has come out of India, either the number one or number two I would have worked with very closely. That's the great joy of our business, and that's what we continue to do even to this day. Okay, back then it would have been, let's say, e-commerce and cab aggregation, or a Byju's or a Swiggy or any of these kind of companies. Today it might be different types of companies which are doing maybe deep tech, which are doing maybe generative AI, which are doing some of the newer things. Okay, so the categories change, but the transformational effect, like I said, that enterprises have on the society, that remains, and that is what keeps us alive and kicking.
Wonderful, sir. As someone who works with a lot of companies who gave a lot of job opportunities to the general public, sir, what general skills do you look for in an employee, sir?
Yeah. So always, Disha, attitude ahead of ability.
Right.
Because, for a person, with everything else being equal, for a person with the right kind of attitude to acquire newer abilities to become better is not very difficult. Okay,
Right.
but everything else being equal, somebody with a greater ability and not such great attitude can end up slipping. And once you end up slipping, it's a slippery slope. I'm saying there's no way to make a recovery in today's dynamic world, where I told you continuous learning is a very, very essential thing, especially in businesses like ours. So, I mean, like I said, everything else being equal, I will look for somebody with the right set of attitudes rather than the right ability. Not saying that ability is not important, but I'm saying that
It can be learned.
yeah, it can be acquired. Of course, the base level needs to be similar. I mean, I'm saying that's why I am emphasizing on everything else being equal. The ability to articulate becomes super essential. Okay, because at the end of the day, you are telling your client how to communicate. Okay, so how to communicate with their audience, and if you are not articulate enough, if you are not able to communicate your thoughts effectively to the client, then that's a recipe for failure. So that's the second thing. Third, obviously, in a dynamic environment like today, like we have today, it is extremely important to have a thorough understanding of the business, which thorough understanding of the business comes with your ability to research enough, your ability to analyze. Again, we should make a distinction between these two skills. Researching is one thing, to analyze what you have researched and then to arrive at a solution is the other. So this whole set of skills around deep diving is what is essential.
Wonderful, sir. What are some PR strategies that you recommend to young entrepreneurs on building their business, sir?
That's like asking me to summarize my life in a few sentences. Very, very tough. But so there is this guy called Joseph Pulitzer, in whose name you would have heard of the Pulitzer Prize. Okay, that is supposed to be the biggest prize in journalism. So apparently, when this guy died, on his wall, the room in which he used to sit and write, okay, there were 6 words written: brevity, 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 accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. Okay, that's what I've heard my journalism professors say. So I would reiterate the same thing for entrepreneurs. Many times, and especially in today's world, brevity has become a huge virtue. You need to be brief. Okay, you need to be, which is what? You need to be concise, isn't it? You need to be able to distill down what you need to say, the complex value proposition that you would have arrived at and which you would have sold to your VC to raise your money. Now, when you are translating that to your customer, needs to sound like an obvious thing, needs to sound like I'm already familiar with it, needs to sound like I want it. Okay, not very easy. So, brevity or to be concise is very, very important. The second is accuracy, which is precise. Okay, concise, precise. Okay, because the minute the rubber hits the road, like they say, the minute your customer comes in contact with you, there is what is called moments of truth. Okay, that happen. Okay, moment of truth happens when the brand comes in contact with the customer, or a company and its proposition comes in contact with a customer. Okay, so now the guy is looking at it and saying, it may not be articulated in as many words, but but you are tallying that with the promise that the brand made. It could be a promise made in the form of an ad, or in the form of what he read in the newspaper, or what he saw on an Instagram reel somewhere. But now, if this doesn't live up to that promise, you have lost that customer. Okay, to win the customer back is very difficult. Therefore, the importance of being precise. Being precise has again various things to it, including being truthful, including being honest. Okay, brands need to be built on these virtues, whether it's a consumer brand or whether it's a B2B kind of a scenario. In fact, B2B scenarios are more complex because you need to build it to specification, and even one thing that you say which is out of place can actually ruin your reputation, ruin your company. So yeah, so these are the two things that I will stay with, but yeah, so it's a long course.
Recently, as we have seen with the development of social media and influencer marketing becoming a big thing, how do you think the PR marketing as a concept and as job has changed, sir? And how do you think it will continue changing and impact us?
Yeah, the PR that we speak of is unpaid publicity. Okay, PR is characterized by two things. One, it being unpaid. Okay, nobody is paying anybody anything except the intermediary. The PR agency gets some money because something they are investing time, but otherwise nobody is paying the media anything. Okay, so media is writing about a business because of the social good that is coming out of a commercial enterprise. Okay, so I mean, it has some consequence to media's audiences. Why should media write about if you are running a business? Why should the media write about your business? It's because media believes that what you have on offer is of some consequence to its TG, media's TG. Media doesn't care about your TG. They care about their own TG. Okay, so if it's of consequence to their TG in terms of it being either educative or informative or entertaining, or it adding value to the lives of those people in some way, making their life easier, better, happier, healthier, one of those things, then media will write about your business. Okay, which means unpaid, but still I'm writing because I am excited by your value proposition. I'm not excited by how great you are. Okay, I'm excited by what value it adds to my audiences, and therefore I'm going to write about it. When I say write, I'm using it as a loose term. Write, publish, broadcast, any of those, something, whatever media does, it does because of this. Now, media is willing to put your word out free, and that media, somebody else is paying for it. The audience is paying to consume that media, paying in some form or the other, depending on if it's a newspaper, you are paying every day. If it's a TV channel, you are paying subscription and stuff like that. Okay, so which means that stuff needs to be pure in its construct. Okay, unpaid. There's also another character of PR, which is it is somebody else talking about you and not you talking about yourself. Okay, it is characterized by it being unpaid, and it's characterized by being a third party endorsement of what you are doing. Okay, if Times of India or the Hindu is writing an article about you, okay, they are doing it out of their own free will because of, like I said, the social in single quotes good that is coming out of your commercial enterprise, and they are not charging you for it. It's unpaid publicity. Okay, and it is somebody else who's sitting in the editorial seat making a thing on you. It's an endorsement that they are endorsement again in single quotes that they are giving you for the good that is coming out of your business. What is an Instagram or something else, X or whatever? It is you talking about yourself, isn't it? I'm saying as a business, you are putting the word out on YouTube or Instagram. If you're doing, it's you talking about yourself. So in its core construct itself, it's not, I mean, you call it loosely PR, but it's not PR. Okay, this is one of the publicity avenues that you have. Okay, advertising, for example, is not PR because you are paying and the publication is putting it out as is. They don't have a say on what should go in the ad and what shouldn't, as long as it's not something that's derogatory or something. Then it's okay. But when it comes to PR stuff, media is taking a considered call on what should go and what shouldn't go. Therefore, unpaid publicity on which you have very little control. That is what characterizes PR. And this flavor of PR will remain in all such media wherever there is an editor or an editorial committee which is sitting at the core. Okay. Social media channels are different. I'm saying it's an avenue for publicity. Wonderful. I'm saying you can push it to people's phones and laptops and what have you. But this is not essentially PR. It has more a flavor of advertising than of PR, and therefore I'm not saying that PR is totally safe and it will not change at all. It's changing in its character. For example, there was a time, let's say 20 years ago, where all that anybody wanted is to get their names published in newspapers. Today, nobody worries so much about newspapers. You want it to be, coming as part of people's Google Trends, and you want it to be part of, all of the other news aggregators and stuff like that. The form has changed, the essence has not, and hopefully it will remain that way. But yeah, AI will have its impact, and that I have explained already on how even that will change, but there will still be value for
The core.
smart, intelligent PR professionals, communication professionals.
Wonderful. A lot of startups might say that separate PR agencies or separate PR services are not necessary because they don't maybe not see the importance of it, or they don't feel like it is a worthwhile investment. So, what is your opinion on that compared to big marketing agencies which they prefer, sir?
Yeah, so it depends on the size of this startup, isn't it? I'm saying for a startup of a certain size, it obviously does not make sense. I'm saying for various reasons. One, they may not need it. Two, they may not be able to afford an external a resource, and it might end up being a burden on them. So, but horses for courses. I'm saying there could be organizations where it is enough if the founder himself at times is able to write an article and get it published somewhere, or issue a press release through some kind of a newswire, and then have it circulated and stuff like that. But that is for a startup which is in a very early stage, a very primitive kind of a stage. But for most evolved enterprises, it is important to have an external neutral good sounding board which is thinking on your behalf, and then reaching out to the media. I'm not saying therefore that every startup should have it. I'm saying most of them may not even need it in today's times. Like you said in your previous question, today there are other avenues to reach out to audiences, and PR is not the only thing. But after a point, to gain credibility, to gain third party endorsement of what you are doing, and to reach out to wider audiences, okay, because a business might have several audiences. It need not just be the customer alone, isn't it? I mean, for example, there could be the customer, there could be, let us say, the talent that you are targeting. There could be VCs and Ps that you could be targeting. There could be government that you might want, to sort of take notice of what you are doing. There could be
Right.
industry bodies who you might want to excite. So I'm saying you are playing to multiple audiences, after you reach a certain level of maturity. And at those times, if you try to do it yourself, it might end up being a distraction to your business rather than, being of help.
Wonderful, sir. And would you say that these are the dedicated things that a PR company can do for a company?
No, again, horses for courses. The mandates could be very different for, some kind of a company. Okay, they might have figured out, let's say a B2B company, they might have figured out, who their clientele should be, and they could be, fine with that. And the only concern there could just be the talent, and they could give somebody a specific PR mandate to just keep the talent excited about that particular category. For
Right.
somebody else, it could be all the 5 6 things that I spoke about. For someone else, it could just be the, industry bodies or the government, because they want their support. Everything else they would have figured out. For someone else, it could just be a single minded thing of, boss, I want the word out where, I want every possible customer of mine to know. It's very important when we are talking about it to note that PR is not a sales tool. In fact, it's not even a marketing tool. Okay,
Hmm.
it is a broader image building tool. Okay, it gives you credibility. It may or may not give you sales. Something sales could be a consequence of that. You need to take that, and then you need to use more, sniper ways of actually getting your customers. This is
Hmm.
not a sniper attack. This is an air cover that you are getting
Ah,
for
right.
your business. It's broad visibility, it's image building, rather than a specific sales kind of an effort. And therefore, some of the micro targeting that you might wish for might not happen here. There could be a huge spillage. I'm saying, if your thing comes out in economic times, yes, the audience is a lot more defined. If it comes out in Times of India, I'm saying, yeah, everybody is reading it. I'm saying you
Right.
can't say, okay, I want this audience to see it and this audience not to see it, kind of a thing. So it's a far more widespread image building tool, which you will use in order to build your image, rather than for specific targeted purposes.
What or who was your biggest motivation, sir?
So, tough question for me, because there have been multiple sources of motivation. But in this context, I want to tell you a story. I failed in my second PUC. Okay,
Oh,
so I, uh, uh, whatever distractions of those times, maybe I was busy chasing girls rather than, being at my books, or too much of play and too little of work. I mean, reasons could be many. I was, you know yeah, here I am coming back, studying in one of the best schools in the city, and then coming back home, and telling my parents that, I have failed. I'm saying, unthinkable. I've never failed in my life, before that. So to come and tell them that, but the kind of reaction that they gave, uh, you know, and pardon me if my eyes swell up when I'm saying this, they said, ಆ, ನೀನು ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಬುದ್ಧಿವಂತ, ಅದು ಹೆಂಗೆ ನೀನು ಫೇಲ್ ಆದೆ, ಅದು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಈ ಥರ ಆಯಿತು, ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡು ನಿಧಾನ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು. ಸೊ look at the irony of it. Here is this guy who has failed and come back home, and parents are calling him intelligent. Instead of saying, instead of admonishing him, instead of giving him a piece of their mind, they are saying, you are an intelligent guy, you shouldn't be failing. So that, to me, was the biggest marker, the biggest motivation, in my life, where, I said, I will never ever let them down again. I will never
hmm.
ever, make them feel bad about how I am running my life. So because there were other friends of mine who had failed and they got a very different reaction in their homes, and today their lives are a consequence of those reactions, and my life is a consequence of this specific reaction or motivation. I mean, they did not mean to fake any motivational stuff to me. They really genuinely believed that I was an intelligent guy, and I believe that I was too, because I was on, like I told you, I was doing a lot of extracurricular stuff. Every day I would read one or two books. Every day, one or two books. There were circulating libraries in those times from where you could borrow books. So, I mean, I was good in that sense, but I'm good in multiple ways. For example, I can proudly say that I have never copied a single word in my life.
Oh,
Never
wow.
ever. I have not done anything that is illegal in my life ever. Okay. So I've not paid a bribe. I no matter what is the consequence. Okay. And many times I've paid a heavy price for that. Otherwise, but okay, all those ingredients were there. But this particular failure, they took it in their stride, and they did not say stuff that could have potentially scarred me emotionally. In fact, they uplifted me at the time of the perhaps the greatest distress in my life. And there were other events also which followed, which sort of corroborated that particular thought, which were, for example, here I am sitting as a failure in PU preparing for my supplementary exam, and two of my articles during that period get published in perhaps the most coveted magazine in those times, Competition Success Review. I don't know if you
Oh,
heard of that. CSR used to be a magazine which IAS aspirants would use to prepare.
oh,
Okay,
wow.
that was the single biggest tool available to IAS aspirants. And here is this PUC fail fellow whose articles are getting published. Okay, where there would be so many people who would do anything. They would give away their left hand to get their name in there. And my article is getting published along with my photo. There are letters coming into my house because the address would also get published along with that, wanting to be pen
Oh,
friends with me and stuff like that. So on one hand failure, and on the other hand success in something else that is related, plus a supportive family, I feel this served as a huge motivation for me in those times of distress. In the later years, the kind of friends that I made, for example, the guy who is my business partner today, Gopinath is his name. And he was an ace debater in those times, a number one debater in the country in those times. I grew up, I was 2 years older to me, so I grew up admiring the way he used to conduct himself on stage and stuff like that. And he's been a major motivation in
hmm.
my life. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be able to speak like him. I wanted to be able to carry myself the way he would in front of an audience, and that served as a motivation in the later years. So yeah, you draw this inspiration from a lot of people, but a constant source of motivation over the last 17 years of day before yesterday we completed 17 years at aim high.
Ah,
17 years of aim high have been the entrepreneurs who come with those starry eyed dreams. I'm saying they come to you and tell you this is what they want to build, and in their eyes, in their body language, in the way they articulate the stuff, you see a huge hope for the generations to come. I'm saying they are thinking not of themselves, they are running themselves to the ground. I'm saying they may or may not have the money to sustain for the next 3 4 months, but they are carrying hope for a nation like ours and for the world at large. And what greater motivation do you need than these bright minds? I'm saying they are from the best institutions in the country, without wanting to take names. They are from the best places in the country, or they could even be from a B or a C town, with an idea and the diligence to take that idea to the next stage.
hmm.
So this is a constant, inexhaustible source of motivation. So yeah,
That was such a
yeah, you and
heartwarming answer, sir.
thank you for that. Yeah, and I think to put it down to just one source of motivation and to say that that's the only thing, I don't think we should operate that way. I mean, that's my advice to youngsters as well. You should keep looking for constant sources of information, and that's available in abundance around you. In fact, there's an overdose of motivation today, if you ask me. I'm saying there's too much of that. Everybody is trying to give you, some motivational gyan or the other. But to find out what sort of fits your personality and to align yourself to that, to internalize that, becomes very, very critical. Okay, I quoted Einstein in the beginning. I'll quote him again. Today, Disha, to know is not the thing. Okay, everybody knows everything. No, I'm saying, we are all students of WhatsApp University and what have you. I'm saying all of us know everything. But then to understand is a different thing. To know is one thing. To understand is quite another, and we need to make a distinction between the two.
What are your personal goals, sir? Away from the company, away from career?
To retire as quickly as possible. Yeah. And to stay at, home, and to travel the world as much as I can. I have visited about close to 35 countries so far.
Wow.
So maybe to visit, all on personal account, and maybe not having a bucket list, but to take that count maybe to 60, 70, to see as much world as possible. ದೇಶ ಸುತ್ತೋದು ಕೋಶ ಓದೋದು ಎರಡನ್ನೂ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. So I want to do both. My eyesight does not permit me to read too much of kosha, but desha I still can manage to go visit. So to do that, my personal goal is to try and see as much of the world as possible along with my family. So many people aspire to leave behind a lot of inheritance for their children. So each time I take my children and visit different countries, I tell them, here goes your inheritance. Yeah. So but to find time for myself to do the kind of stuff that I want to do without being under any pressure. I told you earlier about food on the table and food for the soul. I want to spend the rest of my life, if possible from tomorrow itself, just doing that. I'm saying to find food for the soul all the time without being under any pressure. And food for the soul can come from just walking to a street corner coffee shop, not a cafe, but a coffee shop, and having a cup of filter coffee with a good bunch of friends, having some inane talk, not any intellectual talk, but this thing, it can come from such regular
things.
ordinary sources. And that is what that's the life that I want to live here onwards. I've done enough otherwise. One other very important life goal is to try and see if one can be some kind of a source of inspiration or a sounding board for entrepreneurs. I mean, I've started on that journey. I'm a mentor for several startup related forums and stuff like that. I'm also a very, very active angel investor in
wow.
that sense.
Okay.
I've invested in more than 150 companies at an early stage and stuff like that.
Wow.
But that's investment. But the real investment in terms of time, especially to motivate young entrepreneurs, is something that to evangelize entrepreneurship and to tell them why this is the best time to start out and to stand up and be counted. That is something that I really want to do.
What is the future trend in jobs according to you, and how can students prepare for them, sir?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, most of the jobs that we see today will perhaps get wiped out in
By
the next
AI.
couple of decades.
Right.
And it will lead to a new set of jobs. Okay. So keep talking about ಕಗ್ಗ. ದಿನ ದಿನವೂ ಕುಸಿದು ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವ ಗುಡಿ ವಿಶ್ವ, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಆ ಗುಡಿಯ ಕೆಲಸದಾಳುಗಳು, says DVG. So the world is a place which keeps collapsing, okay, and then rebuilding itself. I mean, that's been happening for centuries and centuries that we know of. It's just that we get alarmed because each time the magnitude of change is much greater than what we saw the previous time. When the IT wave came, I'm sure that two generations which were prior to us were as alarmed as we are today when the AI storm is hitting us. So there will be, like I said earlier, some kind of an upheaval, and there's only one way to prepare for it. To get into a mindset of being interested, of being interested and staying invested in something. Okay, invested not in terms of money, but in terms of mental faculties, to stay invested in something. Okay, because today these are two real big challenges. One, interest, like I told you earlier, that is dwindling because of the kind of passive consumption that we do and stuff like that. Now to bring yourself to be able to read for a long time, to understand long form, to watch something that is seemingly boring but is enriching at the end of the day, to do all of that and then to stay interested, genuinely interested. You can't fake it. That's one thing you can't fake. I mean, yeah, to another person for a few minutes you can look at to the eye and then nod, but that's about it. I'm saying, beyond that, if you're not interested, it's gone. To develop the ability to have genuine interest in everything, in having a conversation with a cab driver, to having a conversation with the CEO of a company, to having a conversation with just about anybody on the street. And when I say having a conversation, I mean to understand, appreciate their lives, to not necessarily only talk to them, but to absorb the world around you with genuine interest, to observe and absorb the world around you with genuine interest. I think that becomes a very, very essential thing. To stay invested in something is to spend enough amount of time in deciphering the nuances of a particular subject. Okay, I mean, when we were young, we were told that, hey, you can become a genius in anything if you spend 8,000 hours on it. Okay, yeah, then came, because out of those 8,000 hours, perhaps 7,200 hours would be spent in just finding that information. I mean, locating that information hidden behind the dust in several libraries and stuff like that. Then came Google. Maybe that 8,000 hours became 800 hours, because, like I told you, 7,200 hours would go in that other thing. So 800 hours, you could become perhaps an expert. Today, somehow people feel that you can be a subject expert in 8 seconds, because that's the time that your generative chat GPT will take in order to collate some stuff but that's not your intelligence. You don't know it. Okay, your system knows how to collate that information and give it to you. But if you don't know it, then go back to my knowledge pyramid. Okay, how will you layer your knowledge and wisdom on top of the layers of raw data and information? Okay, what you get today is information collated and presented to you in a nice way.
Right.
Okay, now if you have to apply those layers of knowledge and wisdom on top of that, you need to have a sound view of the world, which comes from being interested, and depth, which comes from staying invested in a particular domain, in a particular faculty, okay, in a particular subject. So that, I think, is very, very essential. So I would urge today's generation to develop a way by which they can have sustained interest, and the rest of it will perhaps follow.
Wonderful, sir. What are your tips to students who aspire to become successful like you, sir?
Yeah, so my single biggest tip is become like Disha Dioxide. Okay, I'll tell you why. Okay, I'll tell you why. I'm meeting you for the first time today. I've never met you in my life. But when you're asking this question, why am I rhetorically saying become like Disha Dioxide? Disha Dioxide.
interesting.
Yeah. So the reason is very simple. You're sitting in front of me being interested in this subject.
No,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So, which means you are willing to expose yourself, be vulnerable, okay, sit in front of somebody and ask questions, which is the second plate, which is
Right.
ask questions. Okay. No question is stupid. Okay. So, it's okay to ask questions. So,
Mm.
these are the dioxides. Okay. So, one is, to
Be
be
interested.
interested, to be out there and to be interested. And the second is to be asking questions. Asking questions, not just of the world. We are all very, very good at asking the questions of the world. Okay. I'm saying, we can subject anybody to scrutiny. But rarely do we ask questions of ourselves. Okay, rarely do we introspect. Okay,
Right.
so if you need to be successful, like I told you earlier, I'm saying, answering your question on the traits of a CEO, I said emotional intelligence is an essential part of that. And
Right.
if you have to develop that, you need to be interested in the human beings around you, in the happenings around you, and you need to be asking the right kind of questions.
Right.
My other thing is also about what Eleanor Roosevelt said. Okay, not
Mm.
just be asking questions, but also have the right kind of discussions. Okay,
Right.
so for example, Eleanor Roosevelt's famous quote you would have heard. She says, "Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Okay, poor minds discuss people." Okay,
Right.
most of us, not just
Mm.
youngsters, even adults today, thanks to social media or whatever, other things around us, we end up discussing people all the time.
Mm.
Okay,
True,
we
sir.
don't elevate ourselves to a level of discussing events, or further still discussing ideas. Okay,
Right.
I urge today's youngsters, if they want to be anything in life, anything close to being successful, to elevate themselves to a level where they stay away from discussing some stupid politics or just people, to actually discussing,
Ideas.
ideas. Events maybe is still okay. I'm saying, to a certain extent, it's okay to discuss events if you discuss it in the right light. Okay,
Right.
if you are analyzing it with a sense of neutrality, with a sense of objectivity, putting yourself both in the situation sometimes and outside the situation at other times, but more importantly, to discuss ideas.
Ideas.
So I think these are essential things if you want to be successful.
How important do you think networking was in your career, sir? And how can students develop their own networks?
Yeah, so I've always been a very big skeptic of the word networking. Okay,
Oh,
because somehow it gives me a very fake feeling. I'm saying you are getting in touch with somebody for the sake of it. Okay, so is networking in its true form bad? No. What I'm trying to say is the way we construe it today is very different. Okay,
hmm. Right.
so my suggestion is, don't network for the sake of networking.
Hmm.
Network because you have a question to ask. Network because you have a, not network, I mean, reach out to people because you have a question to ask. Reach out to people because you have a point to make. Reach out to people because you are genuinely interested in their lives, in their business, in their story, whatever else. Okay, be real about it. People can today see through very easily if somebody is faking it or not. We must
Right.
remember, Disha, that all of us, no matter how sophisticated we are all animals at the end of the day. Okay, we can very easily sense if the other person is real or not,
Right.
because that's a very inbuilt defense mechanism that is there in us. Is the person hostile to me, or is he or she friendly to me? Is the person hiding something from me? Is there a shield that now exists between me and that person? All of that, we are very smart. I think we figure it out in our personal relationships, but we somehow pretend that that is not there when it comes to professional relationships.
Right.
So, to build meaningful relationships is very, very important, and that has really helped me a great deal in my journey. I'll tell you the extent to which it has helped me. Something which I, somehow it did not come up, so I did not mention it. I have built my business without ever going and pitching cold to a single company in my life. I've never ever gone out and pitched cold to anybody. Never ever.
Oh.
Okay. So how did I build this company? I built it because someone saw the work that we did. They referred us to somebody else. That person referred us to somebody else. Okay. And it kept growing like that. Very, very organically.
Word of
Okay.
mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth, references basically.
Oh,
When I say references,
Hmm.
not paid references. For example, let's say I work with a Flipkart. Flipkart, I told you earlier. Flipkart's the VCs who had funded Flipkart saw this and said, "Hey, let me refer them to some 5 other portfolio companies of ours," and then started working with them. So the minute it's a chain of 5 now, then there are so many. Okay, like that, and then there are other VCs who are watching this and saying, "Hey, who is this making this impact?" And then they reach out to you. So it's all built organically without me ever having to go and pitch to somebody cold, making an introduction of myself. The introduction is made by somebody else, and that makes it easy in a consulting business, which is complicated, like I told you. It helps if an existing client of yours or a VC who has put money behind that client is endorsing you and asking them to go and have a conversation with you. So that's how I built this business. So have I built it based on a network? To answer your question, it is yes, but it's not a network that I ended up faking, but it's a network which got built as a consequence of our work speaking for itself. Okay, if
Right.
you are doing the best job that you can, then a network gets formed around you automatically without you having to make any special effort. I'm not saying, therefore, don't ask for connection requests on LinkedIn or don't go out and talk to strangers that you don't know. I'm saying some of it might be required from a knowledge dissemination perspective, or from a perspective of getting to know what is happening in their lives and businesses and stuff like that. That is okay, but don't overvalue network to the extent where you feel that, oh, if I just have the right kind of connections, then some of my other non qualities will be condoned and therefore I will get ahead, kind of a thing.
Right.
Sometimes I see people operating under that assumption, and that's the reason why I'm putting out this red flag against, not against, but for, in a sense, network in the wrong sense of the term. Networking in the right sense of the term, where you are reaching out to somebody because there is a genuine need, because you are genuinely interested, that will have greater value even if the number of people who are there in that network is small, rather than having n number of people on your network. Okay, just to give you a perspective, if you have 10,000 people in your network, and if you decide that you will have lunch with one of them every third day or something like that. Okay, with you'll cover all of them and you will go out for lunch with them every third day or something like that. You will never be able to cover all the 10,000 in your entire lifetime, because you will need 30,000 days in order to do that, and that's a huge number of years.
Right.
So so I don't think we should index too much on networking. I'd rather index more on meaningful relationships, even in a professional environment.
Now we'll start with the rapid fire questions, sir. What is your favorite food?
So if it's a beverage, it's coffee. That's the only poison that I consume. Yeah.
Food.
So if it's food, then a wide array of food, but I'm more for South Indian food. Though I have tried cuisine across some 30-35 countries, okay, I am a big fan of
South Indian
comfort food, South Indian food, from puliyogre to
Idli sambar.
chitkaure, hudi to idli and dosa, all kinds of this thing. I'm a big fan of uppit also.
Oh,
which
wow.
many people despise,
Yes.
but I love it.
That's the
Yeah.
controversial opinion.
Yeah, because uppit can be made in 100 different ways. So somebody who would have eaten a bad uppit once or twice might have a different opinion of it, and they call it by all kinds of names. They call it concrete and stuff like that. But that's because they would have had the wrong uppit, because uppit can be made in 100 different ways. Yeah.
If you could trade places with anyone for a day, sir, who would it be and why?
Yeah, in my current situation, because I told you that one of my objectives is to you know try and help entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I'd perhaps trade places with Elon Musk for a day, because somebody with that kind of an influence on the startup ecosystem across the world, the technology and the startup ecosystem across the world, could do a lot better, is what I feel.
If you could be a superhero, who would you be, sir?
My childhood superhero has always been Phantom. Okay, so
Oh,
who's
yeah.
become slightly redundant in today's times. I don't see too much of Phantom except in some regional publications. But Phantom did not have any great superpowers. Okay, like some of the other, he couldn't fly or anything like that, and he merely used brute muscle power to take care of crime, and still made a huge impact. He had a soft human side to him, and we all grew up admiring Phantom, so I wouldn't mind being him.
If you could have dinner with a celebrity, who would it be and what do you like about the celebrity?
I have dinner with a celebrity every day of my life. My wife is a celebrity. She's in the, she's an
Acting.
actress.
Right.
She works in serials, movies, theater, and stuff like that. So yeah, she's the biggest celebrity that I admire, and in these last 30 years, I haven't been bored of my dinner conversations.
Wonderful answer, sir. What one book would you recommend everyone reads?
You mean apart from the books that I have written?
Apart from this.
Yeah. So I've been there's no one book, but I've been a big fan of R.K. Narayan. Okay, so R.K. Narayan, incidentally, spent some of his best years in the city in which I live, Mysore. So a lot of the flavor of his books are around the happenings in Mysore. Okay, the reason I'm saying R.K. Narayan and not some of the other authors is because to capture the flavor of a Kannadiga city like Mysore in English is very, very tough. And R.K. Narayan has done a fantastic job of that. And I'd recommend people to read R.K. Narayan. In fact, I've read everything that R.K. Narayan has written, and I recommend people to read it because that will give them a very interesting way of looking at life. Okay, the most mundane things, something that wouldn't even catch your eye, Mr. Narayan spends pages trying to explain that, and does that so interestingly that you will remain hooked on. So, I mean, if you have to develop an interesting way of looking at life, I recommend R.K. Narayan.
Wonderful, sir. What kind of music do you listen to, sir?
Yeah, so, mostly Kannada Bhavagites.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So, otherwise, there was a time when I used to listen to a lot of Mukesh and Lata. Okay, Hindi old songs, and of course, I'm saying I've liked Kishore Kumar, I have liked Mohammed Rafi, all of those. But my taste of music and sense of music is a little dated. It stopped about 20 years ago. I mean, something that sparks interest once in a while does happen, but otherwise it's mostly dated. But Kannada poetry strung to music, that kind of stuff is what continues to excite me.
Wonderful, sir.
Kannada old songs also, old movie songs from Kannada also.
Wonderful. What is your favorite movie, sir? Would you say a Kannada movie?
Oh, favorite movie is very difficult to pinpoint. But yeah, I'm saying Hindi and Kannada is what I have always watched. But since we are talking about movies, every year there is this BIFFIS that comes up, Bangalore International Film Festival. Okay, so which showcases movies. Over the last dozen years, at least for 9-10 years, I have been a regular there, regular to the extent of every year over the period of those 7-8 days, I watch about 30 movies.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
30 movies. So this is world cinema basically. I'm saying award-winning movies from different countries and stuff like that. It's like traveling around the world and living their lives there. Okay, because most of these movies are made very candid. I'm saying it's not like your typical thrillers or action movies kind of a thing. It comes from that which is bothering that particular country or a society or a community at that point in time, and therefore it enhances your view of the world, and it's world cinema in the real sense of the term. And I have been doing this like I said for close to a decade, every year 30 movies a year. That's about the time when I consume so many movies. Otherwise, even throughout the year I may not have watched even 4 or 5 movies, and I somehow do not have the patience to watch movies on small screen.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir, for giving your time today and speaking to me about your journey and your thoughts about the world. I think it was a magnificent experience, and I got so much advice that I'm planning to implement in my life. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot, Disha. The pleasure was indeed mine. I enjoyed this quite a bit. It allowed me to introspect on various things which otherwise I would not have. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for watching.